You think you know the truth? You think a man leaving his wife is a tragedy. But what if it is an opportunity? What if the knife in my back accidentally handed me a weapon? This is not the story of a broken heart. This is the story of a balance sheet and how I learned to use it for revenge. My name is Alara. I am 40 years old, and I am a corporate strategist in Denver, Colorado. I specialize in seeing 3 moves ahead, in calculating risk, and in ensuring the outcome. Tonight, I did not see this. I was at the Summit, a restaurant that sits on the roof of the city, suspended in glass and cold air. It is the kind of place where the lights of Denver look like spilled diamonds, and the silence between courses costs more than most people's rent. The glassware is heavy, the linens are starched, and the service is invisible. I was sitting at our usual table, the one overlooking the mountains, waiting for my husband, Marcus. He was late, 30 minutes late. This was not unusual, but tonight it felt different. It was our 15th anniversary. When he finally arrived, he moved through the dining room like he owned the air. Marcus is a luxury real estate developer, and he wears his success like a custom-tailored suit. He looked magnificent. He was all sharp angles, perfect teeth, and the scent of expensive cologne. He slid into the booth opposite me, offering a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Ilara," he said. It was a greeting, not an apology. I was expecting a small velvet box, or perhaps an itinerary for a trip. At the very least, I was expecting an excuse for his lateness. Instead, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a standard white FedEx envelope. He slid it across the polished mahogany table. It stopped precisely in front of my water glass, a stark, sterile object in a room of curated warmth. "I've spoken to my lawyer," he said. The words hung in the air, canceling the quiet, classical music. I stared at the envelope. It was not a gift. It was a transaction. My hands felt distant as I opened it. I am a strategist. I analyze. I pivot. I control the narrative. But my hands were shaking. Inside, beneath a sterile cover letter from a law firm I did not recognize, were the papers, divorce papers, already signed by him. I looked up. His face was neutral, as if he were discussing a zoning variance. "Marcus, Ilara, we're done." His voice was low, confidential, the way he speaks to investors. "You are too focused on your work. You are too tired." He actually said that. Tired. As if I were a piece of machinery he was decommissioning. I need a fresh start. The restaurant felt suddenly very warm. I could feel the eyes of the waiter hovering, wondering if he should interrupt this execution to offer us more bread. I focused on my breathing. I would not break down here. This is a place of business. I folded the papers neatly, aligning the edges. "And the assets?" I asked. My voice was surprisingly steady. This, finally, brought a real expression to his face. A smirk. It was ugly, and it lit his eyes with a cold confidence. "We'll liquidate the Cherry Creek house. Of course," he said, leaning back. "I'll take my 50%. It's fair." He sipped his water, a conqueror. "You should probably get used to renting. Things are going to be tight for you." He leaned forward, the smile dropping, replaced by a look of profound, patronizing pity. "Be careful, Alara." He delivered the final blow. "Without me, you'll die broke." I froze. My throat closed, and the air in my lungs turned to ice. But it was not because of the insult. It was not because of the betrayal or the humiliation of being discarded in a public place. I was frozen because of a fact, a very large, very specific fact that he, in all his sleek confidence, did not know. My phone, resting on the table beside my purse, was dark, but I knew exactly what was on the screen. I had seen the notification just as I sat down. 30 minutes ago, before Marcus arrived. It was an unread email from a private investment bank. The subject line was simple. Confirmation, Vard Tech stock transfer. I do not remember the drive. I do not remember leaving the summit or retrieving my car from the valet. My first conscious memory after Marcus delivered his verdict was the scent of malt and hops. I was standing at the Copper Keg, a craft brewery in a repurposed warehouse that smelled like yeast and citrus. It was the complete opposite of the Summit. The floors were concrete, the music was loud rock and roll, and the lighting was warm and industrial. It was Chloe's place, my best friend. I bypassed the crowded bar, pushing through the double swing doors to the back. I went straight to Chloe's office, which was really the walk-in cooler. It was where she went to scream at invoices and hide from difficult customers. I needed the cold. I leaned against a stack of kegs, the metal biting into my back through my silk blouse. The air was frigid, smelling of steel and yeast, and it was not enough to stop the shaking. The scene in the restaurant replayed, his voice, his smirk. "You'll die broke." The door hissed open, flooding the small space with warm light and the sound of laughter from the bar. Chloe stood there, wiping her hands on a towel tucked into her jeans. She is all wild red hair and sharp-eyed competence. She took one look at my face and her expression hardened. "Who do I need to kill?" Chloe asked. She was not entirely joking. The shaking got worse. The control I had maintained at the restaurant, the strategic mask, it was gone. The cold in the room was inside me now. "He left me," I whispered. The words sounded small. Stupid. "What? Marcus." I held up the FedEx envelope, which I was still clutching. "He served me divorce papers, at the Summit, on our anniversary." Chloe's face went from concern to a shade of red that matched her hair. "That son of a bitch, that absolute—" "He said—" I choked on the words, the humiliation of them. "He said I was tired. He said he needed a fresh start. And then he told me. He told me I'll die broke." Chloe's rage vanished, replaced by pure, practical fury. "Okay, we're going to destroy him. I'll get the good whiskey. You are not going to die broke. We will liquidate his assets. We will find every penny he's ever hidden. I will call my cousin Vinny." "Chloe," I held up a hand. The shaking had finally started to subside, replaced by something else, a strange, electric clarity. "I'm serious, Ilara. We'll fight him." "No," I said, my voice stronger. "I don't think we will. Not like that." I took a deep breath, the frigid air settling me. I unlocked my phone. I opened the email, the one I had ignored. "The thing is," I said, turning the phone to her, "I just checked that email." Chloe squinted at the screen. "Vard Tech. What is that?" "My Uncle Alistair," I said. "The weird one. The one who lives in a cabin and thinks Wi-Fi is mind control." "That's the one. The genius software engineer who retired at 35. I explained it as much to myself as to her. "Years ago, he started a trust for me. He put all his stock from a little data-sifting startup he co-founded into it. It was his just-in-case fund for me." Chloe was reading the email now, her eyes widening. "The trust," I continued, "was structured to mature and transfer to my sole control on my 40th birthday, which was a few weeks ago. Ilara, that startup, Vard Tech, was just acquired by a tech giant, a massive headline-making acquisition that closed last week." I watched Chloe's finger scroll down the email, past the legal jargon, to the final summary line, to the transfer confirmation into my brand-new individual brokerage account. The one Marcus had no access to and no knowledge of. Chloe looked up from the phone, her mouth open. Her eyes met mine. $6.2 million, she whispered. I took the phone back. I looked at the number. 6.2 million. A cold, hard smile spread across my face. It felt sharp. "I'm not broke," I said to Chloe, the words tasting like victory. "I am ridiculously filthy rich, and he has absolutely no idea." The fog of the previous night evaporated, replaced by the harsh, digital light of morning. The assault began at 8:01 a.m. First came the email from his lawyer. It was copied to me, a perfunctory, Cold digital CC. The subject line was Ilara and Marcus Reed, expedited asset liquidation. It was a demand, thinly veiled as a legal procedure. They wanted a realtor appointed by end of day. They wanted the house on the market by Friday. They wanted immediate liquidation of all joint accounts. The urgency was almost comical. It was aggressive, sloppy. It was not the move of a man comfortably starting a fresh start. It was the move of a man in a panic. Then, at 9:30, my phone rang. Marcus. Ilara, he began, his voice dripping with a sickening, faux-friendly concern. It was the voice he used on nervous city council members. I just wanted to make sure you saw the emails from my guy. I know this is hard, but I am really trying to make this as painless as possible for you. I said nothing. I just listened, my pen tapping a blank notepad on my desk. Look, he continued, filling the silence. The market is hot. If we list the house now, we can get top dollar. The faster we do this, Ilara, the sooner you'll have cash in hand. You'll need that to get settled. You'll need that. Not will need that. You. I'll review the documents with my counsel, I said, my voice flat. Counsel, Ilara, come on, don't drag this out. It's a simple 50-50 split. Don't make it expensive for yourself. I'm just trying to help you. I have to go. Marcus. I hung up. I sat in my home office, the one he had always called my little hobby. This hobby is where I, as a senior partner at Zenith Strategy Group, dissect failing companies and find the rot. I find the bad investments, the hidden debts, the executive hubris that is about to crater a stock price. Why was he in such a hurry? I turned to my work computer. I opened the databases I use every day. I paid for my own premium subscriptions. Separate from Marcus, I started typing. I did not start with Ascent Properties, his flagship company. That would be too obvious. I started with the LLCs he had created for individual projects. I cross-referenced them with city planning permits and public loan documents. It took me less than an hour. It was not a single crack. It was a comprehensive structural failure. Marcus was leveraged to his perfect eyebrows. He had taken out a second, then a third, mortgage on his commercial properties to fund his new baby, a massive, gleaming luxury condo project in Lodo, lower downtown Denver. It was his vanity project, the one that was supposed to make him a legend. But I knew the market data. Zenith had just done a deep dive on high-end residential. The Lodo market was saturated, too many units, not enough foreign buyers, and a glut of new construction. I pulled the public records for his Lodo Project LLC. The sales were catastrophic. Less than 20% sold, on a project that needed 60% to break even on its construction loans. The loans were coming due. He had missed a balloon payment 2 weeks ago. He was not just failing, he was drowning. The divorce, the fresh start, the 50% of our joint assets. He was not just trying to leave me. He was planning a hostile takeover of our shared wealth. He did not just want a divorce, he needed it. He needed my half of the $850,000 from our house to service his debt, to keep the banks from foreclosing and triggering a clause that would bankrupt Ascent Properties entirely. He was not leaving me because I was tired or old. He was leaving me because he was broke. He was a sinking ship, and he was trying to steal my lifeboat. The line from the restaurant echoed in my head. Without me, you'll die broke. It was not an insult. It was a projection. He was not describing my future. He was describing his own. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. I picked up my notepad. I was not a wife anymore. I was a strategist. Game on. I whispered to the empty room. I did not call a family lawyer. This was not a family matter. It was a hostile extraction. Marcus's lawyer was aggressive and fast, which told me my husband was not just leaving, he was fleeing. He was treating this like a corporate raid, so I treated it the same way. I did not need a mediator to discuss feelings and shared memories. I needed a litigator. My research at Zenith Strategy Group gave me access to data feeds that tracked the most ruthless legal battles in the state. I was not looking for the lawyer who won the highest alimony. I was looking for the lawyer the banks hired when they were seizing a private jet, or the person a hedge fund called to oust a founder. The search returned one name, a name whispered with fear in Denver's financial district. Gwen Ripley. They did not call her a lawyer. They called her the War Queen. Gwen's office was on the 45th floor of a steel and glass tower. The lobby was minimalist to the point of being hostile. There were no plants, no magazines, just a severe gray desk and a view of the entire Rocky Mountain range, which looked less like a painting and more like a threat. Gwen Ripley was the human equivalent of her office. She was tall, dressed in a severe charcoal suit, and her hair was pulled back so tightly it looked painful. She did not smile. She did not offer me coffee. She gestured to a hard chair, sat behind her massive empty desk, and steepled her fingers. "You have 30 minutes to convince me to take your case," she said. Her voice was a low gravel. I did not waste time on the emotion. I spoke her language. I presented it as a strategic problem. My husband, Marcus Reed of Ascent Properties, initiated a dissolution of marriage last night. His counsel is aggressive and pushing for an expedited liquidation of all joint assets. My analysis, I stressed the word, suggests he is in catastrophic financial distress. His Lodo project is failing, and he is attempting to use my 50% of our marital assets to cover his business debts. Gwen was unmoved. A common, if stupid, scenario. He is commingling. I can slow him down. Why are you here? Mrs. Reed. Because, I said, he made a tactical error. He told me, and I quote, "You'll die broke." He believes I am desperate. He believes I am the low information party in this transaction. And are you? I took out my phone. I opened the email. I opened the brokerage summary. I placed the phone on her desk and slid it across the polished wood. A few weeks ago, a separate property trust, gifted by my uncle, matured. It has never been commingled. It has never touched a joint account. Gwen picked up the phone. Her eyes scanned the screen. She read the VardTech line. She read the summary of assets. She saw the total $6.2 million. For the first time, an expression crossed her face. A thin, cold smile that barely moved her lips, but lit her eyes. "Wonderful," she whispered. She placed the phone down. "This is pristine. Mrs. Reed, this is 100% separate property. He cannot touch a single cent of it." "I know," I said. "I do not want him to touch it. I want him not to know about it. Not until it is too late." Gwen leaned forward. The predator had finally scented blood. "You are not here for a divorce. You are here for a kill. He thinks I am weak and poor. I want him to continue thinking that while he negotiates, he is in a hurry. I want to use that against him." "The gray box strategy," Gwen said, almost to herself. She stood and walked to the window, staring at the mountains. "This is what we will do. You will not lie. You will never, ever lie on a financial affidavit. That is a crime, and we do not commit crimes. But we are not obligated to show our full hand until the final disclosure. He is rushing the timeline. We will let him." She turned back to me, her eyes electric. "You will comply with every request from his lawyer, but you will do so slowly, meticulously. You will need help finding tax returns. You will question every valuation on our joint property. You will bleed him with 1,000 paper cuts of compliance. He will mistake your precision for the desperate clawing of a woman fighting over table scraps. In the meantime," Gwen continued, "you will open a new bank account at a different institution. You will move your salary there. We will create a firewall. We will let him push for his quick settlement on the marital property. We will let him think he is bullying you." She returned to her desk and sat. "Let him think you are struggling. Mrs. Reed. Let him think he is winning. Let him sign a deal based on the assets he thinks exist. His greed will be the knife, and you will simply let him run onto it." Marcus was gone. He had moved out with theatrical haste, taking only his expensive suits, his golf clubs, and the Porsche. He left his toothbrush, as if to prove how decisive he was. In his haste, however, he had been sloppy. He was a man who believed he controlled the board, so he had grown careless about his digital footprint. He forgot to remove my email from the joint credit card account. The statement arrived on a Tuesday, a sterile PDF from the bank. I opened it out of habit, but now, I was not a wife glancing at household expenses. I was an auditor. I scanned the line items, his usual expensive lunches, his tailor, and then, a pattern. A charge for $5,000 from the Solstice Spa and Resort, Aspen. 2 weeks ago. Another charge from the same resort, dated 3 weeks before that. A series of charges from high-end boutiques in Cherry Creek North. Stores I never shopped in. Balenciaga. Gucci. A charge for $2,000 at a lingerie shop called La Perle Noire. He was not just leaving, he was celebrating. I sat back. The strategist in me pushed past the initial wave of nausea. He was spending, but he was spending from our joint account. The account that held marital assets. I highlighted the Solstice Spa and Resort line. I opened a new browser tab. I did not search for the resort's website. I searched for its location tag on Instagram. It took less than a minute. The feed was full of wealthy tourists and influencers, all posting pictures of the same infinity pool overlooking the mountains, the same plush white robes with the solstice crest. And there she was. Her handle was Luxury Life Sienna. She was 24, maybe 25, with the kind of manufactured beauty that requires constant, expensive maintenance. Her feed was a curated stream of champagne, new handbags, and hotel balconies. I scrolled. 2 weeks ago, a picture of her, pouting at the camera, wearing one of those plush solstice robes. The caption, so spoiled, thank you for the best surprise. Geotag Solstice Spa and Resort. I scrolled further. 3 weeks before that. Another post from the same resort. Then I found the one that mattered. It was a candid shot of her laughing, holding a glass of champagne. Sitting next to her, just in the frame, was a man's arm, an arm in a crisp white shirt, resting on the chair. On the wrist was a watch, a Rolex, the specific steel and green model I had spent 3 months sourcing, the watch I had given Marcus for our 10th anniversary. I did not cry. I did not throw my laptop. The anger I felt was cold, pure, and utterly quiet. It was the anger of a CEO who has just found irrefutable proof of embezzlement. He was not just cheating on me. He was stealing from me. He was liquidating our shared life, our marital assets, to fund this new one. He was doing it before the divorce was final. He was buying her loyalty with my money. My hands were steady. I took a screenshot of the hotel bill. I took screenshots of Sienna's Instagram posts. I saved the picture of the watch. I composed a new email to Gwen Ripley. I attached the files. My message was 5 words. Add this to the arsenal. Gwen's reply came back in under 10 minutes. It was short, and it was the most beautiful thing I had ever read. This is not evidence of infidelity. Colorado is a no-fault state. Infidelity is worthless. This is evidence of dissipation of marital assets. It is a willful waste of the marital estate in anticipation of divorce. This is infinitely better. The delay tactics, all perfectly legal, were working. Gwen was a master at finding discrepancies in the paperwork Marcus's lawyer sent. Every time they rushed, Gwen would send a polite, surgically precise email pointing out a missing account statement from 3 years ago, or a valuation on a piece of art that needed an independent appraisal. Marcus, predictably, was unraveling. His panic was becoming more and more obvious. His campaign of pressure escalated. He stopped emailing and started calling, his voice a thick soup of false concern. "Ilara, I am hearing from your lawyer that you are holding things up," he said one afternoon, his tone that of a disappointed father. "You are acting irrationally. This is not like you. Are you, are you okay? Really? I am just trying to ensure everything is correct. Marcus, I replied, my voice pitched, as Gwen had coached me, to sound weary and slightly overwhelmed. But it is correct. Alara, it is a simple 50-50 split. You are paying a lawyer to find problems that do not exist. You are burning money, your money. Then, the reports from the field came in. A text from a mutual friend. Hey, just checking on you. Marcus mentioned you were not taking this well. So sorry. He is a bastard. He was painting me as unhinged, a hysterical, heartbroken woman who could not accept the reality of the situation. He was building a narrative that I was incompetent, irrational. The masterstroke of his gaslighting campaign arrived via email a few days later. The subject, helpful links. It was a list of one-bedroom apartment rentals in the suburbs, all in the cheapest possible bracket, a list of budget-friendly furniture stores, a link to a financial planning blog titled Surviving Divorce on a Single Income. He was not just trying to divorce me, he was trying to write my future as a pathetic one. I stared at the list, the insult so profound, so deeply condescending, it almost made me laugh. I forwarded it to Gwen with the note, "See attached." Gwen's reply, "Good. Let him be arrogant." Marcus, convinced he was dealing with a financial and emotional amateur, decided to make his next generous move. "Look," he said on our next call, "I know you are worried about setting up a new place. I want to be fair. I was thinking, what if I keep my pension, and you keep all the furniture? All of it. The restoration hardware dining set, the beds, everything. You will need those for your new apartment." It was a brilliant move, if I were the person he thought I was. He was offering me tangible, immediate things in exchange for an intangible future asset. He was betting I was too stupid to understand the value of a retirement account. I let the silence hang, as if I were considering it. What he did not know, and what his lawyer, in his haste, had clearly not been told, was that I had seen the statements for that pension. During my audit of his finances, I saw he had taken a loan against it 6 months ago, a massive one, to cover a business emergency for Ascent Properties. His pension, which should have been worth over $200,000, was nearly empty. He was offering me $25,000 worth of furniture, which I did not even want, in exchange for my half of an account that contained less than $10,000. He was trying to trick me into feeling like I had won something. I do not know, Marcus, I said, putting a slight tremble in my voice. The furniture, it would be a big help. Not having to buy all of that again. Exactly, he said, jumping on the perceived weakness. It is a fresh start for you. Just let your lawyer know. Okay, we can write it into the agreement. Okay, I whispered. Thank you, Marcus. That is fair. I hung up, and then I got back to my real work. My job at Zenith Strategy Group was secure, but it was tied to my old life. It was tied to Marcus, to the social circles we ran in. I needed a firewall, a complete, scorched earth firewall. I had been passively watching a rival firm, Apex Solutions, for months. They were smarter, faster, and more aggressive than Zenith. I called a headhunter I knew, and within a day, I had a confidential interview with their CEO. I did not go in as a woman needing a job. I went in as a high-value asset they needed to poach. I laid out my strategy, my client list, my vision. 2 days later, the offer came through. It was not a lateral move. It was an ascension. A 40% raise, a partner track title, and a significant immediate grant of stock options. I accepted. I signed the paperwork. And I did the most important thing. I set my start date for 1 month after the scheduled final mediation. My new salary, my new options, my entire new career. They were all post-marital. They did not exist, legally, until after he was gone. Marcus's lawyer, no doubt sensing his client's mounting impatience, sent what was clearly meant to be a knockout blow. The email was titled Final Offer of Settlement. It was a masterpiece of arrogance. It laid out the division of assets, but the numbers were wrong. They had attached a preliminary market analysis for the Cherry Creek house that valued it at $50,000 less than the most conservative estimate. It was a lowball offer, designed to be haggled over by a desperate party. More insulting. The asset list forgot to include a small joint investment account we had about $20,000 in tech stocks. They had also forgotten the cash value of a shared life insurance policy. Small amounts, but in aggregate, it was a clear attempt to skim. They were betting I was too emotionally distraught to check the math. I forwarded the email to Gwen. Her response was a single line. "This is lazy. Send them our ledger. Do not add commentary." I spent an hour compiling our own response. I did not write a word of text. I simply attached the official bank statements for the missing accounts, the correct policy numbers, and 3 separate, recent comparable sales from our neighborhood that proved their housing valuation was fraudulent. I hit send. The response from Marcus's lawyer came an hour later, this time just to Gwen. I was no longer CC'd. I learned later, through discovery, what the exchange was. Marcus, upon seeing my meticulous corrections, had called his lawyer, furious. "She is clearly tracking every single penny," he had yelled. "She is terrified. Just accept the corrections. Whatever. Give her the extra 20 grand. I want this done. She is obviously scared to death of being poor." He could not comprehend it. He mistook my precision for desperation. He thought I was fighting for the scraps, when, in reality, I was just a strategist who despised an inaccurate spreadsheet. His arrogance could not process the idea that I was not the victim. With his victory in sight, Marcus felt the need to perform one last act of magnanimity. He called me. "Alara," he said, his voice now calm, almost soothing, the victor speaking to the vanquished. "I know this has been hard on you. I want to do one more thing, just to show there are no hard feelings." I waited. "The cars. Look, I know you always loved that old Subaru of yours. It is paid off. You should keep it." "I will keep the Porsche." I almost smiled. The Subaru Outback, my reliable 10-year-old car, was indeed paid off. The Porsche 911, however, was not ours. It was a lease, an incredibly expensive lease, with payments of $2,000 a month that he had insisted on signing jointly for the financing. By keeping the Porsche, he was not taking an asset. He was taking, by default, the full liability of that crushing monthly payment, a payment he was already struggling to make. He was so blinded by the image of winning, the image of himself in the sports car, that he failed to see the financial trap. "That," I said, "that is very generous of you. Marcus, thank you. I will keep the Subaru." "Good, good," he said, relieved. "See, we can be civil." He was in such a good mood he became sloppy. "I am glad we are getting this wrapped up. Sienna and I are planning a little trip to Cabo in a few weeks, and I would love to have this all behind us." Sienna. He said her name. He was so confident he had won that he was flaunting her. "I see," I said, my voice as empty as I could make it. "I am glad for you." "Right. Well, my lawyer will send the final documents. The mediation is set for the 15th. It should just be a formality. Just signing. Do not let your lawyer drag it out." "I will be there," I said. I hung up the phone. I looked at the calendar. The 15th. I had a date. I pulled up my new bank account, the one at the Swiss brokerage. The $6.2 million sat there, silent, patient, and completely invisible. It was 1 week before the mediation. The time for passive defense was over. It was time to build the firewall. My movements were precise, methodical, like a surgeon preparing an operating room. First, the money. The $6.2 million, sitting in the domestic brokerage account, was a liability. It was visible. I initiated the transfer. It was not a simple move to another American bank. Gwen had vetted a private wealth management firm in Zurich, one with a reputation for absolute discretion and zero digital footprint. By the end of the business day, my inheritance was no longer in the United States. It was wire transferred, converted, and settled in an account under my maiden name, linked to a newly formed LLC that had no connection to Marcus Reed. The account was, for all intents and purposes, invisible. Next, I executed the legal structures Gwen had designed. I spent an afternoon with a trust and estate lawyer, one of the best in Colorado, recommended by Gwen, and established a series of complex, layered, but perfectly legal irrevocable trusts. These were not simple accounts. They were fortresses, designed to protect the assets for my future, untouchable by any future litigation or creditor. The money was now not only hidden, it was armored. The final piece of the wall was professional. I walked into my managing partner's office at Zenith Strategy Group and tendered my resignation, effective in 2 weeks. I was gracious, explaining that I needed to finalize my divorce and was taking a personal sabbatical to find my footing. My boss, knowing the rumors Marcus was spreading about my breakdown, was sympathetic and wished me well. What I did not tell him, what no one knew, was that the contract with Apex Solutions was already signed and digitally locked in my new lawyer's vault. My start date was set for the first of the month after the scheduled mediation. My new 40% salary increase, my new partner track title, my significant new stock options, they were all future income. Legally, in the eyes of the marital court, they did not exist. As I was taping up the last box of my personal files from the house, my old phone rang. I saw the caller ID and was surprised Uncle Alistair. "Ilara," he grunted, bypassing hello as he always did. "Your mother told me. You're divorcing that shiny real estate fellow." "I am Uncle Alistair," I said, pausing with the tape gun in my hand. "Good. Never liked him. His teeth were too white. Listen, I was cleaning out my files on the Vard Tech sale. Forgot to tell you something." I waited. The new parent company, they were paranoid about us engineers holding back code, so they put an acceleration clause in the acquisition contract, a performance kicker, tied to integration. Make sure we didn't sabotage them. I stopped breathing. A kicker. Yes, the integration is finished. They're happy. So the second payout is triggering. It'll hit the trust in about 6 months. Just got the notification. Should be another one. Maybe $2 million, depending on the final calculations. Just wanted you to know. Have a good day. He hung up. I stood in the empty room, surrounded by boxes. 1 to 2 million more. The sheer, staggering absurdity of it hit me. I looked at the expensive, oversized sofa Marcus had allowed me to keep. I almost laughed. It was a cold, silent laugh that did not even make a sound. I finished cleaning the house. I packed only my clothes, my books, and my personal files. I left everything else. I left the king-sized bed. I left the dining room set he was so proud of. I left the art he had picked out. I left all the things he had traded his empty pension for. I let him win the furniture. I walked out of the Cherry Creek house and did not look back. My last stop was a phone store. I bought a new, top-of-the-line smartphone and activated it with a new number. I transferred only 3 contacts: Chloe, Gwen Ripley, and Uncle Alistair. I was ready. I was not in our house. I was not in one of the depressing cheap rentals Marcus had helpfully suggested. I was on the 21st floor of the Four Seasons, in a suite I had booked under my maiden name, Ilara Vance. The charge was on my own, new, private credit card. The air was silent and perfectly filtered. On the desk, under the crisp, focused light of a lamp, lay the final settlement agreement. It had been messengered over by Gwen's office. It was the document Marcus had been rushing toward, the finish line he was so desperate to cross. I read the terms one last time, though I already knew them by heart. It was a clean 50-50 split of all known marital assets. The proceeds from the fast-tracked sale of the Cherry Creek house, the liquidation of our joint bank accounts, and the very small joint investment portfolio. After the lawyers, the fees, and the closing costs, the final number was calculated. Approximately $850,000 would be wired to me, and the same to him, $850,000. This was the number Marcus had fought for, the number he had condescended to me over. He had argued over the valuation of the furniture he was giving me. He had allowed his lawyer to concede on the $20,000 he had tried to hide. To him, this $850,000 was the entire world. It was the money he needed to save his company. He truly believed this was all there was. My new phone, the one with the clean number, buzzed on the desk. A text message. It was Marcus. He must have gotten the number from his lawyer for the final mediation logistics. It was. I knew. One last turn of the screw. One final act of psychological control. Alara, I hope tomorrow is just a formality. No hard feelings. That $850,000 is a lot of money for you to start over. Manage it wisely. Don't waste it all. I read the words. A lot of money for you. Manage it wisely. The condescension was so pure, so potent. It was almost a caricature. He was still playing the role of the disappointed, generous husband parting with his dim-witted, emotional wife. I felt nothing. No anger, no sting of injustice. It was just a final piece of data, a confirmation of his total, catastrophic ignorance. I did not reply. I held the power button on the side of the phone until the screen prompted me, and then I shut it down. The screen went black. I slid the phone into the desk drawer and closed it. I picked up the heavy hotel phone and dialed room service. Yes, I said. I would like the 20-ounce Wagyu ribeye, medium rare, and a bottle of Dom Perignon, the 2008 if you have it. When it arrived, I sat by the window, overlooking the lights of Denver. I poured the champagne. It was cold, sharp, and perfect. I raised the crystal flute, not to myself, or my future, or even my freedom. I raised it to the dark, empty room. To Uncle Alistair, I said, my voice quiet, and to the profound, magnificent stupidity of greed. I ate the best steak of my life. I drank the entire bottle of champagne. And that night, for the first time in over a decade, I slept without a single dream. I slept the deep, heavy, and satisfying sleep of a soldier whose weapons are clean, whose armor is sound, and who is completely, utterly prepared for the dawn. I woke before the alarm, the morning light just beginning to turn the sky gray. I knew exactly what I had to do, and I knew exactly what I would wear. Hanging in the closet, steamed and perfect, was my armor a custom-tailored Armani suit, the precise color of glacial ice. The mediation room was beige, windowless, and smelled of stale coffee and industrial carpet cleaner. It was a room designed for the death of things. On one side sat Marcus and his lawyer, a sharp-looking man who clearly charged by the minute. On our side, there was just me and Gwen Ripley, a block of granite in a charcoal gray suit. I was in my ice blue Armani. Marcus was visibly vibrating with impatience. He was smug, checking his Rolex, my Rolex, as if he had a more important appointment to get to. He was already spending his $850,000. I could see the Cabo trip, the down payment on a new condo, the celebratory dinner with Sienna. It was all over his face. The mediator, a tired-looking man who had seen this scene 1,000 times, droned through the final summary. We have an agreement, signed by both parties, for a full and final settlement, a 50-50 division of all known marital assets, as detailed in Appendix A. The total distribution to each party, following the sale of the primary residence and the liquidation of specified accounts, will be approximately $850,000. Are both parties satisfied with this resolution? Marcus's lawyer nodded. We are, Your Honor. Marcus himself just smiled, a tight, controlled smirk of victory. The mediator pushed the final stack of papers across the table. Then let us execute. Marcus grabbed the pen, a cheap blue ballpoint, and scrawled his name with a large, arrogant flourish. His signature was a statement. He was done. He was free. He was rich. Then The pen was passed to me. I picked it up. Gwen gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. I signed my name. Alara Vance Reed. My signature was not a flourish. It was a line of code. It was precise, clean, and final. The mediator took the papers, stamped them with a heavy, final thud, and signed his own name. He closed the folder. It is settled. The marriage is dissolved. The agreement is binding. It was done. Marcus pushed his chair back and stood. He adjusted his tie, pulling it taut. He could not help himself. He had to have the last word. He had to land the final punch. He looked directly at me, his eyes full of that nauseating, patronizing pity. "Good luck, Alara," he said, his voice loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Try not to die broke." The mediator winced. Marcus's lawyer looked at his shoes. Gwen Ripley cleared her throat. The sound was like gravel in a blender. It cut through the silence. "Mr. Reed." Marcus turned, annoyed to be delayed. "Yes." "Before you leave," Gwen said, her voice a calm, flat monotone. "There is one final document. This is not for negotiation. It is a mandatory legal disclosure, required by the state, to be presented upon the finalization of the settlement. A summary of separate property." Gwen reached into her briefcase. She pulled out a single sheet of paper. She slid it across the polished table. It glided silently, stopping directly in front of Marcus. He glanced down, irritated. He scanned it. His eyes moved over the legal text, looking for the point. Then he stopped. His eyes froze. I watched the blood drain from his face. His carefully constructed tan disappeared, leaving a sick, ashen gray. He put one hand on the table to steady himself. He read the line again, his lips moving silently. I knew what he was reading. Vard Tech stock options, matured, separate property, and then the number, $6,200,000. He looked up, his eyes wide, confused, searching. He looked at his lawyer, who was just as stunned. He looked at the mediator, and then he looked at me. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The blood rushed back into his face, a dark, furious red. He understood. He understood that he had just fought, lied, and clawed for $850,000. He understood that his entire victory was less than 15% of my actual worth. He understood that I had been sitting on $6.2 million the entire time. He understood that I had let him win the small, stupid battle over the furniture. He understood that I had let him think he was a shark, while I was the ocean. He understood, in that one, silent, agonizing moment, that he had not divorced me. I had liquidated him. I stood up. I smoothed the front of my ice blue suit. I did not say a word. I turned, and I walked out of the room. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to connect with you all, so please, comment below and let me know where in the world you are listening from and share your thoughts. Please subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and show your support by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.